morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to take a little bit of a look at what is going on with that Pikachu. Now, we know we've done a couple of videos around this lately. I did a video showing you the most expensive cards from Surging Sparks. I told you Pikachu's number one. I showed you a video about the prices generally falling, and they are, but told you Pikachu was an exception. What we've not talked about yet is exactly how much that Pikachu is actually worth, and how strange it is that this Pikachu is going like it is, and I think that's probably what we need to do now. So let's just talk properly, sit down, have a good old chat about this Pikachu. Now, obviously, this is the big new card from Surging Sparks, and it is your special illustration rare, which is quite rare, although I did show you the other day, according to TCG Player who put this together, not as rare or difficult to pull as the gold cards. If you want your Pikachu, it's going to come out one in every roughly 960 packs. But if you want the gold Pikachu, for instance, that's going to be 1,127. I dispute a tiny bit those numbers, or they're very, 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 very close. We have very small disagreements, but I did a whole video about that. You can check that one out in the description. The point is, the special illustration rare Pikachu is not actually the rarest Pikachu in the set. That's a gold card. But this is the most sought after because look at the artwork. Now, realistically speaking, we look at this and we should be saying, right, this is a top tier card. This is, it's playable, don't get me wrong, it's a decent enough card. It's largely, Pikachu decks on their own are not seeing much love and play. But it is becoming pretty good in Miraidon decks. It gives you a Terra Pokemon to open up things like Area Zero Underdepths. But more recently, especially in the West, it seems, people are starting to really warm to this in Lost Box decks. Because it can't be one-hit KO'd, because it does good damage, because you've got Mirage Gate to accelerate the energy. You add all that up together, and actually people are starting to like this a lot in Lost Zone decks. So playability-wise, it's good, but let's not pretend it's the best EX out there. It's not some kind of meta-defining card. It's a good card that's seeing play, but it's not that kind of level. So what we really should be looking at here is cards like Charizard. So we go to Obsidian Flames. We've got the Akira Igawa Special Illustration Rare Charizard, and that is a phenomenal card playability-wise. That has been ruling the metagame pretty much since it came out, and it's got lovely artwork. But actually, the small number of chase cards in Obsidian Flames has actually kept the value of that Charizard down quite a bit, honestly. It's really depressed it. So, yeah. It's actually currently sitting, according to TCG Player, that's around about a $50 card. But then we got another version of that same card in Paldean Fates. Again, it's Charizard, the most popular Pokemon. It's actually also by Akira Igawa, the same artist. It's even better, I think, than the original. And it's still redonkulously playable. So we add all of that up together, and the Paldean Fates card comes in at around about $140. But again, that the Obsidian Flames, the low number of hits in that set meant that each hit is easier to pull, which has really brought the value of that one down. So we've got a $140 Charizard in Paldean Fates. But then that's actually not the most sought after of them. What we've actually got is the one from Scarlet and Violet 151, which is currently sitting at around about a $200 card. Now, this one is nowhere near as playable, and I don't think anyone's pretending that it is. There was a brief period people tried teching it into Charizard decks, the good Charizard deck. Didn't work, nobody's playing it. But we've got the wonderful artwork here, and that really has endeared people, and this has ended up as a $200 card. And you might have noticed on Twitter, I pulled this the other day, no big deal. Love this card. Very cool card. Would much rather have the Japanese version, but, you know, I've opened quite a bit of Japanese 151 and it ain't come out yet. The Alakazam did, though, so there's at least something. So when I'm looking at this Pikachu, that's the kind of benchmark I'm looking for. These ridiculous level of cards. Or we could maybe look at something like Terrapagos. Now, Terrapagos is a weird one here. Currently sitting at about a $95 card, so less than the big Charizard. But Terrapagos is more people think it's really playable, unless Terrapagos is super duper popular. So we should be looking at this at about a $200 card. But remember, let's look at the Charizard from 151. That didn't release at a $200 card or anything silly like that. That took time to get up to a $200 card. If we have a look at the graph for this over the past year, we go from 135 and then it goes down to just over $100 for a while and then sees a big jump up to a near $200 card. That's how that one works. We look at the one from Paldean Fates, for instance, and we see again that is a very valuable card. It's up there at about 140, but you'll notice that actually if we have a look at the graph as a whole, on release it drops from like 180 all the way down to about a $110 card, and then jumps back up to 140. That is what big cards tend to do. And I give you all of this Charizard preamble because that is where Pikachu should be. Bit less playable than Charizard, I think. Or, well, less playable than the Paldean Fates, more playable than the 151. But it's still Pikachu, and people are looking for a popular card right now. So that's where we end up where we are. So then I show you the TCG player graph for Pikachu. And it doesn't make any sense. And this is a beat I've been on basically since this card released. It doesn't make sense. I just showed you that both the super expensive Charizard, they had a big jump after a while after going down. Pikachu held steady at like $300, but then as it comes out, we see a massive jump up to, well, now it's nearly $600. And I've told you this before, there is no logical explanation for this. I can tell you why it's happening, but it shouldn't be happening. This is not how Pokemon cards tend to go. The reason, as I've explained in other videos, is basically a bunch of people went, subconsciously I believe, let's push Pikachu up. Everybody wants Pikachu. Everybody wants Pikachu to be expensive. So everybody's willing to pay a little bit above what they should be paying because they're sure it's going to go up. But because everybody is willing to pay a little bit more than they should be, it does go up. And then everybody sees it going up and they're like, oh, we need to keep buying this before it goes up further, which ironically pushes it up further. And that's how we end up with a card which there is no reason Pikachu should be doing this when the Charizard cards I showed you did the exact opposite. Big drop, and then over time building up. That is what the really high level cards do. I could show you the Umbreon V Max from Evolving Skies, which was the single biggest card we saw in the entire Scarlet and Violet era. Well, a year ago, that wasn't at the price Pikachu is at now on release, and that was after going up a lot. And sure, it's now jumping up, and it's had two big spikes lately. It's up at like $13.50. But a year ago, November 2023, it wasn't at the level Pikachu's out. Anyone remember when Evolving Skies launched? August 2021. More than 2 years after the release of Evolving Skies, Umbreon, the biggest card in the entirety of the Sword and Shield era, had not gotten to the level that Pikachu's managed in a week. That alone should tell you this is too high. But I've got one more way to prove that this is way too high, and that is, look at Japan. Look at what's happening over in Japan, because sometimes cards will be redonkulously expensive in Japan as well, and that will essentially give us our explanation. If it's really expensive over there and over here, it's just that level of card. And look, if we look at the most expensive cards in Japan for, well, Super Electric Breaker was the equivalent set, we do find that Pikachu is number one, and actually at the time of recording over on the site I generally tend to use, it's sold out. It is a 33,000 yen card, which is a very big number. But 33,000 yen isn't close to $600. It's $210. Well, it's $211.34 if you want to be pedantic, but call it $210. This is a $210 card in Japan. Super expensive. Not arguing for a second that it's not super expensive. It is super expensive. But it's not to the same ridiculous level that it is over here. But we can also do a little bit of a comparison. What's the number 2 card in Japan? Well, the number 2 card in Japan, as it stands at the moment, is Hydreigon. And Hydreigon, you're looking somewhere in the region of 8,000 yen. Which means a Hydreigon is basically a quarter of Pikachu. Well, what do we see in the West? Is Hydreigon a quarter of Pikachu? And you know where we're going with this, don't you? Pikachu is about a $600 card. Hydreigon, yeah, it's like a $90 card. Which means maybe we could accept Pikachu being a $350 card. Although, again, I think that is a massive push. And I don't think going, oh, it's 4 times the price of Hydreigon in Japan, it should be 4 times the price of Hydreigon over here. I don't think that's a great way to do it. But I understand that's how some people might go. Well, yeah. It's absurd. It's way too high. Now, I've shown you the TCG player price for Pikachu. It's sitting at about 585 right now. Is that realistic? Well, we can go and have a look over on eBay here, and if we focus only on sold cards, what people have actually spent here, you know where we're going with this, don't you? That's about right. The last 3 solds are 575, 580, and there was actually a 500, which looks like a bargain, but it was put up there as a buy it now, and people bought it now. It went up and it sold quick, as you might imagine. And this is a card which just keeps jumping up in price. You know, if you went there a few weeks ago for this Pikachu, people were picking it up for $300 all day long, which seemed too expensive. Again, compare it to the Charizard. I'm not just saying random stuff here. I showed my working. $200 for this card at this point, newly released, $200 would be absurd. $200 would be a ridiculous price for any special illustration rare on release, given the incredibly popular, super playable Charizard cards took months to get up to $200. And we're just expected to believe that this Pikachu has just naturally jumped up to 3 times that a week after release. It is a card which, and I don't think there's anything malicious going on here, but it has been massively artificially inflated because people are just going, let's overspend. And I don't think people are deliberately saying let's overspend, but that is what's happening. And the fact is, as I've told you before, if enough people turn around and decide to overspend, then it will keep being pushed up. Right now, if you're looking for an exact price, $580. We've actually got a really nice, clear price. At the time of me recording this video, this is a $580 card. Whether you think it should be or not, and I think I've made my thoughts on that pretty clear, it is a $580 card. Will it keep growing up to Umbreon VMAX proportions? I don't know. Will it crash? I kind of hope so, honestly. But it seems like we're trying to make a new Umbreon with this Pikachu, and ignoring the fact that Umbreon took months, years. Like I say, more than 2 years after release, Umbreon had not yet got to the level of Pikachu. After a week. It's all being done at an accelerated pace. It doesn't really make a huge amount of sense, but it's happening. So, do you want to overpay for it? I'm going to leave that over to you guys. For now, let me know if you've pulled this, if you've picked it up, if you managed to snag yourself a bargain. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Evan Parker, who's been a supporter of ours for a long time now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.